What if a company destroyed itself not because the market left, but because leadership refused to look out the window? Because that is exactly what happened inside Chuck E. Cheese's, and it cost them everything. This is not a story about a pandemic. It is a story about a company that was already broken long before COVID arrived, and the downfall timeline proves it. The year is 1977. Nolan Bushnell, co-founder of Atari, has already changed how the world plays video games. Now he wants to change where families eat dinner. On May 17, 1977, the first Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater opens in San Jose, California. Bushnell's pitch is simple: combine arcade games, animatronic entertainment, and pizza under one roof. The concept is revolutionary for its time. Parents get a sit-down meal. Children get an arcade. The animatronic band, Chuck E. and his crew, provides live entertainment. Nobody had ever packaged family fun this completely before. Bushnell knows arcade hardware. He knows what makes kids obsessive. And for a brief, brilliant moment, that expertise is an unstoppable competitive advantage. But while the locations multiplied, the seeds of collapse were being planted. Every new store added debt, and every token sold masked the coming storm. The question wasn't whether the model would break. It was when the boardroom would notice. But Bushnell is not a restaurant operator. He is a technology entrepreneur running a hospitality business. And that gap between what he is and what the company needs starts to show almost immediately. In 1984, Pizza Time Theater files for bankruptcy. Bushnell is out. Showbiz Pizza Place, the main competitor, acquires the restructured company. Over the following years, the brands consolidate, operating as Chuck E. Cheese's by the early 1990s. By 1989, the combined entity operates over 470 locations under the unified Chuck E. Cheese brand. It is the largest family entertainment chain in America. The 1990s look healthy from the outside. New locations open. Birthday parties are booked months in advance. The brand is a genuine American institution, woven into an entire generation's childhood memory. But inside the walls of the corporate strategy meetings, a critical question is never seriously asked. What happens when children no longer need to leave home to play arcade games? And ensure that failure to ask the right question, to even consider the threat of home gaming, would ultimately cost the company its independence, thousands of jobs, and nearly $2 billion in value. In 1994, Sony releases the original PlayStation. In 1996, Nintendo 64 arrives. The living room becomes a full arcade, in high resolution, with multiplayer at zero cost per play. This is the moment the entire business model of Chuck E. Cheese's becomes structurally vulnerable. The coin-op arcade, its primary revenue driver, its core entertainment proposition, begins its slow, irreversible death. And here is where the leadership mistake compounds itself. Instead of pivoting the experience, making the physical venue something no console could replicate, management doubles down on incremental improvements to what already exists. New games get added. Ticket redemption systems are expanded. The prize counter gets bigger. These are cosmetic fixes applied to a structural problem, the equivalent of repainting a building that has no foundation. Meanwhile, something important is happening across town. Dave & Buster's, launched in 1982, is quietly evolving into a direct competitor by doing what Chuck E. Cheese's never considered. It targets adults. It adds alcohol. It makes the entertainment venue experience aspirational instead of nostalgic. This was a choice. And that choice, to ignore the future while competitors captured it, would cost the company its independence. The decision not to pivot was itself a fatal decision. Instead, they attempt something far more dangerous: a brand identity overhaul. In 2012, Chucky himself, the iconic animatronic mouse, gets redesigned from a pizza-loving, banjo-playing family entertainer into a rock star, skinny, guitar, no more pizza. The public reaction is swift and unambiguous. Parents are confused. Children do not connect. Social media mocks the change without mercy. Within months, the redesign is quietly pulled back. Millions spent, zero gain. But the brand damage is already done. The confusion signals something more corrosive than a bad design decision. It reveals that no one in the boardroom truly understands who the customer is anymore. It is 2014. The company, now operating as CC Entertainment, has stabilized revenues but is not growing. Private equity is circling. Apollo Global Management, one of the largest alternative asset firms on the planet, sees an opportunity. Apollo takes CC Entertainment private in a leveraged buyout valued at approximately $1.3 billion. This is the pivotal moment. This is the corporate strategy decision that transforms a struggling brand into a structurally doomed one. A leveraged buyout works like this. The acquiring firm borrows most of the purchase price and loads that debt directly onto the target company. Chuck E. Cheese's does not receive investment capital. It receives a debt obligation, one it must now service from its own cash flow. For a company already facing structurally declining arcade revenue and an eroding brand, now carrying hundreds of millions in debt, there is almost no room to maneuver. Every dollar that should fund renovation, technology, or experience upgrade goes instead to interest payments. The locations begin to show it. Maintenance deferred. Equipment aging. Carpets worn. The physical environment, which is the entire product, starts to decay. Guest notice. Yelp reviews notice. But the boardroom spreadsheets still show manageable EBITDA. In 2018, the animatronic band, the signature of the brand for 4 decades, begins being removed from locations. The rationale, cost savings and modernization. The reality, stripping out the one thing that made the physical visit irreplaceable. By removing the animatronics, leadership eliminates the single experience. No home console, no streaming service, and no backyard birthday party could ever replicate. They are not modernizing. They are erasing their own irreplaceability. At this point, the downfall timeline is locked in. They have maximum debt, a diminishing physical experience, a confused brand identity, and no strategic differentiation from cheaper competitors. The collapse is not a question of if. It is a question of what triggers it. The answer arrives on March 13, 2020. The United States begins shutting down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For a business entirely dependent on physical foot traffic in enclosed shared spaces, it is an extinction-level event. All 612 Chuck E. Cheese's locations in the United States close simultaneously. Revenue drops to zero. But the debt, the nearly $2 billion in obligations loaded onto the company by private equity, does not pause. In a move that generates more media attention than any corporate announcement the brand had seen in decades, management attempts to sell pizza delivery under the ghost kitchen name Pasquale's Pizza and Wings. The reviews come back positive. Customers love the pizza. They do not know it is Chuck E. Cheese's. The ghost kitchen ploy generates headlines, but not revenue that can reverse a nearly $2 billion debt spiral. It is a clever tactical move, executed inside a structurally failed corporate strategy. It changes nothing. On June 25, 2020, CEC Entertainment files for Chapter 11, bankruptcy protection. Total debt listed in the filing, approximately $1.97 billion. The company cites COVID-19 as the cause, but the filing tells a different story. The filing reveals that even before COVID, The company had been burning through cash, unable to maintain locations, unable to attract new customers at scale, unable to service its debt without stress. COVID did not cause this collapse. It accelerated it. Behind those numbers, approximately 34,000 employees, tens of thousands of workers whose livelihoods sit inside a corporate strategy failure that began not in 2020, but in a boardroom sometime around 2014. The media coverage that follows is both massive and predictable. The brand, once a symbol of childhood celebration, becomes a synonym for corporate mismanagement. The image is nearly impossible to recover from at scale. In November 20, CEC Entertainment emerges from bankruptcy, restructured, with debts reduced. But the footprint is dramatically smaller. Locations have been permanently closed. The company that exits bankruptcy is a shadow of the one that entered 2020. Post-bankruptcy management attempts a genuine repositioning. Locations are redesigned. The entertainment offer is updated. Some animatronics are retained in select markets. It is a more serious operational effort than anything attempted in the 2014 to 2019 period. But brand trust, once broken at this scale, requires years to rebuild. Parents who associated the name with decay and disappointment do not simply reverse that association because carpet has been replaced. The brand equity damage is generational. Compare this to Dave & Buster's trajectory over the same period. By 2022, Dave & Buster's annual revenue exceeds $1.8 billion. It has expanded, acquired Main Event Entertainment, and positioned itself as the dominant adult-facing entertainment venue brand in America. That difference in strategic discipline created a billion-dollar gap in outcome. One company is still growing. The other lost its bondholders' money, its employees' livelihoods, and its place in American culture. The deepest autopsy finding in this story is not the bankruptcy. It is the window that existed, roughly 1995 to 2010, when Chuck E. Cheese's had the brand recognition, the real estate footprint, the customer relationships, and the capital access to reinvent itself entirely. That window closed, not because the market moved too fast, because the leadership inside those buildings convinced themselves that what had worked in 1985 would still work in 2005. That is the leadership mistake at the center of this collapse, and it is one of the most common in business history. The pattern is always the same, and if you're watching this and running a business, or even managing your career, the lesson is clear. The signals you ignore today are the crises you face tomorrow. Never let loyalty to a past success become blindness to a present threat. What makes this story a genuine business documentary case is that every signal was available and visible. The home gaming shift, the Dave & Buster's model, the customer feedback, the debt risk. None of it was hidden. All of it was ignored. That is not bad luck. That is a choice. The lesson from Chuck E. Cheese's is not about pizza or arcade tokens. It is about knowing when the model you are protecting has already stopped protecting you. Never let loyalty to a past success become blindness to a present threat. If this collapse taught you something, like comment with a company you want us to autopsy next, and subscribe for more boardroom mistakes that changed industries.